psychology, religious studies, just to mention a couple of disciplines that she's engaged in. So we are very fortunate today that Anna is happy to give a lecture on the natural semantic metalanguage as a tool for global communication. So on behalf of Udayana University, the Linguistics graduate program at Udayana University, English department at Udayana University, and the Center for Interdisciplinary Studies on Humanities and Social Sciences. This is a joint center between the ANU and Udayana. I thank you, Anna, for this time, for your lecture. We are looking forward to that. Okay, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you very much. Good day. Good day. I'm really very happy to have this opportunity to speak to you, and thank you very much for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be able to connect with you. And I'm looking forward to your questions and to discussion. Well, the talk is a good thing, but the discussion, I think, is even better, questions and answers. So let me start. As you know, my topic is the natural semantic metalanguage as a tool for global communication. And I want to start with 10 simple questions and 10 simple answers, and then take it from there. So question 1. What is the natural semantic metalanguage? Answer. It is an empirically discovered shared core of all languages. It has as many versions as there are languages in the world. For example, well, there is an English NSM, a Polish NSM, I'm Polish, that's why I mentioned Polish, an Indonesian NSM, and so on. But all these different versions match in meaning. Question 2. How was this shared core of all languages discovered? Answer. It was discovered over several decades of wide-ranging cross-linguistic investigations conducted by many scholars with hundreds of resulting publications. Question 3. What is this shared core of all languages like? What is it like? Answer. It is really language-like. It is like a little language, a mini language. It comprises a mini vocabulary and a mini grammar. The words of this mini vocabulary have a different form, of course, and different properties in different languages, but they do match in meaning. For example, the English words good and bad match in meaning with the Polish words dobry and zły, and with the Latin words bonus and malus. Even though the Polish words and Latin words have lots of inflectional variants, whereas good and bad don't, but the meaning is the same. Question 4. Can people actually speak in NSM if it is language-like? Answer, yes. People can actually speak in NSM. That is, for example, in English NSM, or in Polish NSM, or in Indonesian NSM, or in any other NSM. One of our colleagues actually is very sick now, and friends and colleagues have been sending him messages in NSM. Question 5. What would be some examples of sentences formulated in NSM? Well, there you will see that there are some examples, many examples actually on the handout. I will get to the handout later. But I wanted to draw your attention to a few which are taken examples, which are taken from a recent interview with Cliff Goddard, Bert Peters, and myself, conducted by an Italian medical scholar, Professor Maria Giulia Marini in Milan. She emphasizes the therapeutic role and potential of NSM, especially in doctor-patient interactions, in doctor-patient communication. So, for example, Patients suffering from clinical depression often can express their thoughts and their feelings through NSM in sentences such as, I can't do anything, I don't want to live anymore, or nothing good can happen to me. When they cannot express their thoughts and feelings in the complex language which is usually used by psychiatrists. So, for example, there is something which is regarded as the Bible of psychiatry, in inverted commas. It's called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM-5. And among its diagnostic criteria for clinical depression, it lists feelings of worthlessness or excessive or inappropriate guilt nearly every day. But psychiatric patients don't speak like that. They don't say, oh, well, I have feelings of worthlessness. Nobody speaks like that. On the other hand, they may well say, I'm no good. I can't do anything. That's what they do say. And this is Nsm. I myself have heard psychiatrists asking a patient, do you have suicidal ideation? Something that the patient may not understand or relate to. But they didn't know how to ask patients the question that they wanted to ask. But using Nsm, psychiatrists could ask, for example, do you sometimes think, I don't want to live anymore? Do you sometimes want to do something because of it? And this is the kind of language that patients can relate to and can respond in. Question 6. How does this shared language of all people compare with ordinary languages? Answer. It is similar to them insofar as it can actually be used for ordinary human communication. But it is different because it is very restricted. And second, because it is essentially culture-free, independent of culture. Unlike the words of full languages, the words of Nsm do not carry any cultural baggage. Question 7. Well, you can ask, do you really expect us to believe that a language can be culture-free and yet fit for human communication? Answer, yes. A very restricted language, such as, for example, the English Nsm or the Italian Nsm, can be both culture-free and suitable for human communication. Maria Giulia Marini, this medical professor of narrative medicine in Milan. So her examples of doctor-patient communication in English and Italian illustrate this. Of course, there is a qualification is needed. Pure Nsm is only suitable for human communication in a limited range of situations, not in every situation. Question 8. Can Nsm, for example, the English Nsm or the Indonesian Nsm, be useful in a wider range of situations in some way? Answer, yes. Nsms, for example, the English Nsm or the Indonesian Nsm or the Polish Nsm, can be very useful for communication in a relatively wide range of situations through their extended forms, which are known as minimal languages, minimal English, minimal Polish, minimal Indonesian. Question 9. What is minimal English and how does it differ from English Nsm? Could you give us an example? Answer. Minimal English is an extended form of English Nsm, and minimal Polish is an extended form of Polish Nsm, and so on. For example, I have published a long story about Christianity in minimal English, and a parallel story about Christianity in minimal Polish. And a Russian version of the same story will be published before long in Russia. I think I brought here the English version. I don't know why I didn't bring the Polish. So this is the book which contains the English version of the, it's called The Story of God and People. So I now have The Story of God and People in English, in minimal English, in minimal Polish, and in minimal Russian. And they match in meaning. So I would like to give you one example using the word God, which of course is crucial for Christianity. So I'm talking about the word God in the Christian sense of the word. For example, as it is used in the beginning of the first sentence of the Christian Creed, known Confession of Faith, known as the Nicene Creed. This first sentence says, I believe in one God. This creed, this Nicene Creed, was formulated in the 4th century in Nicaea and Constantinople as a statement of the shared faith of all Christians. And of course, the same kind of language can be used for presenting any faith, any religion that you want to explain to people in intelligible ways. You can use exactly the same model. But I would like to show you, well, part of my explication of the Christian concept of God. The first part of this explication is actually formulated in NSM. It is on your handout. Then I skip the middle, and the last part is formulated in minimal English. So when you look at this explication, you will see how NSM differs from minimal English. So I start with the first part of the explication of God, which is, I think, in pure NSM. God, there is someone not like people. This someone is someone above people. This someone is above everything. This someone is now, always was, always will be. This someone is everywhere. There is no one else like this someone. God is this someone. People can't see God. At the same time, people can know some things about God. They can know these things because God wants it. So now I will skip the middle of the explication and present the last part, which is formulated in minimal English. People can know many things about God if they read a book called the Bible. It is not a book like any other books. God speaks to people in this book. This book has 2 parts. One is called the Old Testament, the other is called the New Testament. The Old Testament has many parts. It is like one book. At the same time, many books are parts of it. Many people wrote these books over a very long time. They wrote about things of many kinds. The New Testament is not like this. Not many people wrote it. These people didn't write it over a very long time. They didn't write about things of many kinds. They all wrote about someone called Jesus. When people read the New Testament, after some time, they can know this someone, Jesus. At the same time, they can know that when they know this someone, Jesus, they know God. So this is the end of this explication. And there's a discussion, extensive discussion of this explication in this book, What Christians Believe. But I will just comment on a few aspects of it. Well, first of all, you will notice that in the second or last part of the explication, you would have noticed the words book and read and write. These words have their semantic equivalents in many languages of the world, but of course not in all languages. So this shows that this part of the explication is formulated in minimal English and not in pure NSM. In pure NSM, we couldn't use words like read and write and book. Now, question 10. How can NSM serve as a tool for translating between languages and between cultures? Answer. NSM can be useful for translating between languages and cultures in different ways. One of them is this. It can serve, as a tool for translating the meaning of words which are cultural keywords in a given language, but they have no counterparts in other languages. I have discussed this, many such cultural keywords in my book, Understanding Cultures Through Their Keywords, published in 1997, and other people have since discussed them too. And it has often been recognized that every language has certain words which encapsulate some important aspects of the speaker's view of the world, and that it's really essential for outsiders to come to understand what these words mean if they want to grasp the culture, the speaker's understanding of the world. But often, the more important these words are, the more untranslatable they are. So, NSM can serve as a tool for translating untranslatable words. And I will give you one example. The word from an Australian Aboriginal language called Warlpiri. The word is Jukurpa, and it has equivalents in other Australian languages. Traditionally, these words were rendered in English, in Australian English, as dream time or dreaming. Australian anthropologist W.H. Stanner tried to explain how important these concepts are if people want to understand Aboriginal cultures in Australia. He tried to explain this concept by speaking about a sacred, heroic time of the indefinitely remote past, which is also, in a sense, still part of the present. Well, I admire Stanner. He's a great anthropologist. But this explanation, his explanation of the concept of Jukurpa is still, I think, Eurocentric, because it relies on European concepts, especially Anglo-English concepts, such as sacred and heroic. There are no such words in Australian Aboriginal languages. So he's already explaining this concept of Jukurpa through the prism of English words sacred and heroic. As colleagues and I believe, we can achieve far better understanding if in our explanations we rely only on simple concepts which are shared by all languages and all speakers, concepts such as good and bad, word and true, before and after, and so on. My colleague Cliff Goddard and I have tried to provide such an explanation for the Warlpiri concept of Jukurpa, dreaming, in an article which was published in the Australian Aboriginal Studies in 2015. Well, it has often been pointed out that the concept named in Warlpiri with the word Jukurpa is at the heart of Australian Aboriginal cultures. Non-Aboriginal Australians can get a glimpse of this concept through these English words, dreamtime and dreaming, which are now taught even in primary schools in Australia. They are so important. But most Australians appear to have only the vaguest idea of what this concept really means. So on the handout, I've placed a partial NSM explication of this concept, which I will now read, partial. It's not the full explication. Jukurpa, you can follow it on the handout. Dreamtime or dreaming. When people say Jukurpa, they often think like this. At some time before, many things were happening here for some time. Things like this can't happen now. When people here want to say something about all these things, they can say it with one word. This word is Jokurpa. Many old men know a lot about this. Many old women know a lot about this. They can say many things about it. These things are true. Explication is formulated from the point of view of the speakers. So the speakers believe that these things are true. Because many old people know a lot about this, about Jokurpa, other people can know some things about it. Not all people can know these things. Sometimes people can know things about it because they see some things when they sleep, in other words, in a dream. People in this place often say many things for some time about this, about the Jokurpa. That is to say, people tell stories about the Jokurpa. And people in this place often want to hear these things. People love to listen to Jokurpa stories. When people in this place say these things, they say things like this. Many things happened at this time before. These things happened in many places. Some men did some things in some places. These men were not like men are now. Some women did some things in some places. These women were not like women are now. Some creatures of some kinds did some things in some places. These creatures were not like creatures of these kinds are now. And people often say something like this about many places. This place is as it is because of Jokurpa. People often say something like this about many things. It is like this because of Jokurpa. So, well, the first point I want to emphasize is that this text is composed exclusively in words which have counterparts in Walbury itself. And second, relatedly, this text can be translated almost word for word into Walbury. And third, this text can be understood by speakers of English. It is totally free of Anglocentrism, and yet it is intuitively clear and transparent to English speakers. And on this point, I wanted to show you how the writer and Nobel Prize winner, John Coetzee, responded to this minimal English explication of Jokurpa in an email to me. I think I've put it, this email on the handout. So he wrote, "Dear Anna, thank you for the paper on Dreamtime. Your paper has for the first time enabled me to make sense of Dreamtime." Well, I was naturally very pleased to receive it because it seems to me that's precisely the goal, to achieve mutual, genuine intercultural understanding, which cannot be achieved, I think, if we try to explain Aboriginal Walbury concepts through English words such as sacred or heroic. Well, I don't have the time here to try to discuss or to justify this NSM explication of Jokurpa, but you have a reference on the handout, so you can read the paper if you like and make up your own mind about the justification. Okay, so that's the first part of my talk. And now I'd like to turn to the handout with you and look at it in more detail, and in particular to comment on the two tables which you have on the handout. The first table is the table of semantic primes. And they are arranged here. The diagram was composed by one of our colleagues, Lauren Saddle. I hope you have the version in color. Yes, Ryan has a version in color. My version, a copy doesn't have color, but it's there. And they have been arranged into groups here so that we can more easily somehow visualize the whole complex system. Lauren also invented little icons to make it easier for people to remember the groups. Although there is nothing sacrosanct about the groups, you could probably arrange these primes somewhat differently. But I think this is a good way of arranging them. And she has a nice icon for each group, which helps us to take in and to remember the group. So the first group, as you can see, has the icon of a figure, human figure. And it includes the following words: I, you, someone, something, people, and body. The second group on the right has the symbol of an arrow, which somehow is supposed to indicate that this is about, well, all the elements in this category, at least in English, are verbs, and in most languages they would be words. Sometimes in some languages, some of them would be adjectives. But the verb to move, for example, which is universal, is part of this. But to go through them, you will see there are several very, very important words there which refer to what you would normally call in ordinary English sort of mental life. But there's no word like mental in all languages. So want, don't want, know, think, say, feel, see, hear, do, happen, move, live, and die. These are pretty crucial words, and you can achieve a lot relying on these words. When you want to talk about, as you will see later, when you want to talk about things which are of real importance to people, about how to live and what is happening in our lives, things that matter in our lives. These, all these verbs you will see are terribly important, and thank God we can find them in all languages. So this is really an important basis of cross-cultural understanding. The third group here has the symbol, well, I think it's meant to make you think of relationships, but of course there's no word like relationship in most languages. So they include to be somewhere. You can say that something is somewhere. You can say that there are, for example, there are two kinds of bat or something like that, or two kinds of yam. You can say that someone is who someone is. You can say that something is mine. You can say that there are two kinds of such and such. You can say that the body, for example, human body has many parts in any language. This is actually a controversial point discussed by many linguists in various articles. I've written an article about it myself recently, which is to be presented at a conference in Moscow next month, and so on. And there is the word words, very important word. When you want to talk about language and about speaking, you can't really do it without the word words. And again, luckily, we do find a word for words in all languages. Then you have the next group. Well, this is very clear because the icon is a clock. So you can guess that these words somehow or other have something to do with time. So we have the words when, which is in all languages, and you can also say at this time. We regard time in this phrase at this time as a variant of when, now, before, after, a long time, a short time, for some time, and moment. Then on the right, we have a little group which has this icon of a tag, which identifies your luggage at an airport, okay? So these, again, this is just a hint. We don't have a word which would really show what these three words have in common. Well, they don't have anything in common because they are all primes. They don't have parts. They are not decomposable. So they can't really share anything semantically in terms of what is included in them. But still, they belong together, and often they behave similarly in various ways. So they include this, the same, and other. And again, we find them everywhere. Well, then you have a group here of words which somehow are related to location. And you have an icon here which indicates location. I can't remember how this icon is used. It is used in practical life somehow to identify where something is. So you have where or place. In this place, it's the same thing as where, here, above and below, far and near, side, in the sense of on one side, inside, and touch. Yeah, then you can see an icon here which should make you think of an abacus with counters on it, numbers, quantities. So 1, 2, some, more, all, much, many, and little, few. Of course, many linguists and anthropologists have denied the universality of some of these concepts. Especially there's the famous anthropologist Daniel Everett, who has written a lot about a language called Piraha, and he claims that Piraha doesn't have words for two or doesn't have words for all. But we have discussed and examined his claims in great detail in relevant publications, and I think we have shown that he is wrong, that there are words for these concepts in Piraha too. Then the next group has this icon of scales. Well, I hope it somehow evokes the concepts which are included in this group, good and bad, crucial for ethics. If you want to talk about ethics globally, what is good or what is bad for people to do, well, you need words like good and bad. And luckily you do find them in every language. There's the word true, the word very, and the words big and small. And then the last group is something which you might call linkers, if you really need a label. But, and you have this symbol here, this icon, which should suggest the idea of things being linked. But again, this is just for, you know, help. Not, negation, maybe, can, because, if, and like. So many people would call these sort of logical connectors or somehow logical operators and so on. There's a widespread view among logicians and philosophers that there are some others. And what about or, for example, or what about and? Well, there are languages which don't have words for and or, for example, in Australia. But every language that we have looked at, and we have sampled lots of languages from different parts of the world, do have a word for if and because. And this is really crucial for reasoning. And also, of course, can and maybe and not. And like in the sense of this is like that, essential, and we do find it everywhere. Okay, and now I'd like to draw your attention to the second table, which is called the Diagram of Semantic Molecules, Universal, Approximate, and Culture Specific. I don't know how much time I should spend using talking about
minutes.
Yes, but yeah, because if I spend too much time talking about these tables, I will not be able to talk about other things. Maybe I can just go through it quickly and then we can come back to it if there is time in the discussion. So the idea is that semantic primes are very simple concepts which cannot be explained or decomposed. They are as simple as it can be. You cannot explain what negation, what not means. If you don't know what not means, nobody can explain it to you, or if, or because, or someone, and so on. So these are primes, and there are 65 such primes. But some concepts, complex concepts, for example, cultural keywords, are not composed directly out of the primes, but there are certain intermediate concepts which are used, as in chemistry. There are molecules as well as atoms. So we think we have discovered that there are also certain universal molecules which can be used to build up more complex meanings. And you have what we see as universal semantic molecules in the left-hand half of this handout. So the first one, you can see the icon hand. So a number of different body part terms are there, which appear to match cross-linguistically. Hands, legs, head, eyes, ears, mouth, nose, skin, fingers, teeth, bone, blood, breasts, and that's more, well, face, I think. There are a number of various other body parts which don't match cross-linguistically, but these, according to us, do match, and we have a number of publications trying to show that it is so, and arguing against other people who think that some languages don't have words for hands, and it has been claimed that some languages don't have a word for head. It's not true, according to us, and according to the evidence which we have presented in various publications. Then there are certain verbs. Well, again, you have the symbol here. Well, I'm not quite sure how this icon can help, only to evoke the idea that you have mostly verbs in this group. Stand, sit, lie, sleep, breathe, hold, play, laugh, sing, and kill. There are certain social categories, which amazingly we find in all languages in this particular meaning. Children, men, women, be born, mother, father, husband, and wife. There are certain adjectives or adjectival concepts: long, round, flat, hard, soft, sharp, and heavy. Materials: wood and stone. Well, certain environmental concepts, namely fire, water, air, and light. Certain spatial concepts: at the top, at the bottom, in the middle, around, in front, and be on something. And there are some concepts to do with living creatures and plants. Creature, to grow in the ground, and the ground itself. I will not talk about the other molecules, but these are very important if you want to do semantic analysis of complex cultural concepts. Well, you often cannot rely directly, exclusively on primes, but you can freely use universal molecules. There will be no problem with cross-linguistic and cross-cultural communication and understanding if you are relying on universal semantic molecules. So the next thing I wanted to do is to show you how this works in practice. And I put two texts on your handout to illustrate how this works. And I'd like to show you at least one of them, or possibly bits of parts of both of them. The first one is the Charter of Global Ethics, formulated in minimal English. You may or may not know that there is a new field of inquiry, well, new, relatively new, people have been talking about it for about 30 years, about how to construct a basic charter of global ethics that people from different traditions, different religions, different cultures could hopefully, well, talk about, maybe agree on to some extent, at least. And this was started with a declaration towards a global ethic, which was put forward by the Parliament of World Religions in 1993. The Dalai Lama was one of the leading figures there in working on it and promoting it and organizing it. And the fact that it was the Dalai Lama who was behind it at the beginning is very, very important, because he had certain cross-linguistic awareness that most other people involved in this didn't have, especially European scholars and European philosophers and theologians who were involved, and they often didn't have the cross-linguistic experience that the Dalai Lama had. But he knew very well from his own experience that if you want to talk about what is good and what is bad in Tibetan, it is not the same as talking about these things in English, because many very important concepts don't match between Tibetan and English. So he put forward this basic requirement that a charter of global ethics should be discussed and formulated in cross-translatable words. That's revolutionary. extremely important. Well, except that those bodies, people who worked on it, well, couldn't really do it because they didn't know how to find cross-translatable words. And they knew, or many people knew, that even words like freedom and dignity and equality, that they don't really translate from language to language. So if you want to use cross-translatable words, you really should go beyond such European concepts with long tradition. So what they finally decided on, as far as I can see, was to try to use the words humane and inhumane as far as possible, because they thought that by using these words humane and inhumane, they will avoid bias, European bias and Anglo bias. But of course they don't, because the words humane and inhumane don't match across languages either. It is only the words on our list of 65 and our list of universal semantic molecules which really do match. So I wanted to show you, I published this Charter of Global Ethics in Minimal English in 2018. You have the reference on the handout. So let me just give you a few examples. There are 24 such principles here. The first group starts in the frame, it is very bad if people want such and such. So one, it is very bad if people want to do very bad things to other people. It is very bad if people want to kill other people. It is very bad if men want to do very bad things to women. It is very bad if people want to say many things to other people if they know that these things are not true. Well, you may or may not agree with all these proposed principles, but at least you understand what they say. They show you how you can talk about it in a language which is truly culture neutral, I think. And the next group, it is very bad if people think like this. Norm 5. It is very bad if people think like this about some people. People of this kind are not like other people. They are below other people. It is very bad if people think like this about people. I am someone of one kind. People of this kind are not like other people. They are above other people. It is very bad if men think like this about women. There are two kinds of people. Men are one kind and they are above the other kind. Women are the other kind. Norm 8. It is very bad if people think like this about people. People of many kinds live on earth. People of some of these kinds are bad people. Okay, maybe I will stop here with the Charter of Global Ethics because I'd like to show you also something, at least part of the other text, which is on the handout. And this is the set of essential messages for the time of coronavirus. And I will just first read a few sentences from a paper on this topic, which I've written for a book entitled Minimal Languages in Action, published, edited by Cliff Goddard. And this is my chapter, or this is my chapter in this book. So at the time of the coronavirus, it has become clearer than ever before that at certain times, certain messages need to be shared globally. They need to be accessible to everyone, everywhere on earth. This is possible only if there is a shared language of thought in which such messages can be formulated. To say the same thing, we need to think the same things. And to some extent, in some places, minimal English can serve as such a shared language. But obviously not everywhere in the world people can understand English, not even in its minimal form, not even minimal English. That is to say, English cut to the bone, minimal English. Arguably, genuine global communication can be achieved only if the same essential messages can be read or heard by everyone in their native language, provided that they can all match in meaning and thus be truly global in what they say. So this chapter in the book edited by Cliff Goddard seeks to demonstrate up to a point that minimal languages derived from NSM, from the Natural Semantic Metalanguage, can enable us to achieve this goal. And it does so by putting forward 7 essential messages for the time of coronavirus. And this time of the pandemic is a time when the universal reach of NSM-based minimal languages can be truly put to the test. And I just wanted to mention that we now have many versions, language of these essential messages formulated by native speakers and also experts in these languages. So we have an Italian version, a Spanish version, a Russian version, a Polish version, a Chinese version, some Australian Aboriginal versions. So this is not just minimal English. This is really minimal languages based on NSM. So you have these 7 essential messages on the handout, and let me read to you 2 or 3. They are essentially messages of hope, you might say, using the English word hope. How to think and how to hope at a time like the pandemic. But I'm not using the word hope because the word hope itself is not universal. But you can see that these messages can somehow, I hope, lift people's hearts and spirits. So message 1. This was formulated at the time when there was lockdown even in Canberra, in Australia. Now we are very lucky, but far more lucky than most other parts of the world. It is good for all of us if we think like this every day now. This time is not like other times. Very bad things are happening to many people now. Many people are getting very sick because of the coronavirus. Many people are dying because of this. More people can die if I do some things now as I have always done. I don't want this. Because of this, it will be good if I can be at home all the time. If I have to be not at home for some time, I will think like this all the time. I don't want to be very near other people. I don't want to be so near someone that I can touch them. I don't want to be so near someone that I can breathe the same air. Message 2. It is good for all of us if we think like this every day now. This time is not like other times. Very bad things are happening to many people now. Many people feel something very, very bad. I can do some good things for some of these people. I want to do something good for them. I want to know what I can do. I want to think about it. I want to do something today. Okay, message 3. It is good for all of us if we think like this every day now. This time is not like other times. During this time, many people can't be with other people as before. They can't speak to other people like before. Many people feel something very bad because of this. I know some of these people. I want these people to know that I'm thinking about them. I want them to know that I don't want bad things to happen to them. I want to do something because of this. Perhaps I can write to them. Perhaps I can ring them, something like this. I want to do something now. Please bear with me. I'd like to read one more message 4. There are 7 altogether, but let me read 4. It is good for all of us if we think like this every day now. This time is not like other times. Very bad things can happen to me during this time, not like at other times. At the same time, I can do some very good things during this time, not like at other times. I can do many things good for the soul, not like at other times. I can read books, listen to music, write something every day about this day, things like that. If I pray, I can pray more. If I don't pray, I can do something like it. I can look at the stars at night. I can look at the sky when the sun is rising, things like that. I want to do these things. I want to do these things today. Okay, well, I have more time than I thought, so I will read maybe message 7, the last one as well, before concluding. So message 7, it is good for all of us if we think like this every day now. This time is not like other times. We can't live during this time as we lived before. At the same time, we can think about some things more now, not as before. We can think about things like this. We all live with other people. None of us is like an island. How can we live well with other people? We can think about the earth. We can think like this. We all live on earth. The earth is a good place. We don't want to do bad things to this place. At the same time, we can think like this. We live on earth now. Many people will live on earth after us. We don't want very bad things to happen to these people. If we think about these things more now, after this bad time, we can live with other people not like before. We can live better. We want this. Well, there's a lot I could say about all these formulations, and you may have noticed yourself that some of them may seem problematic, but I will not do this now. Instead, I will just move to the last thing I wanted to say, my concluding remarks. And this actually, I want to read to you what I have written on a blog, guest blog, published on the website of Macquarie University in Australia. And the blog is called Language on the Move. So they first published these essential messages. And there's a kind of commentary on this, one page, which I'd like to read to you now. So one of the most memorable sentences in the King James Bible comes from a line in the part of the Bible called the Acts of the Apostles, from St. Paul's speech to the Greeks in Athens. God has made of one blood all nations of men to dwell on all the face of the earth. So yes, we are all related by blood as members of the same human family. But as many modern thinkers have pointed out, a deep awareness of human unity requires something else as well. In the words of the German philosopher Karl Otto Appel, it requires that we see all people on earth as a universal community of communication. Well, there are 6,000 or 7,000 different languages in the world. Can a universal community of communication be established in a world divided by thousands of different languages? And here comes the good news. The world is not only divided by several thousand different languages, but it's also united by them. Because while the languages of the world are very diverse, evidence suggests that they all include a shared core, which itself is like a mini language. And this mini language has as many versions as there are languages in the world. But in the 21st century, for global messages, the most practical of them is minimal English. And again, here I quote what I've already quoted to you, those examples from medical scholars. One way of putting it is to say that at the heart of all languages, there lies a mini language which can be called basic human, and which can be seen as the mother tongue of humankind. Italian medical researcher Maria Giulia Marini said in a recent interview that people who are suffering from major depression and generally can't talk and write have been able to express their thoughts and wishes and in simple and transparent words and phrases of this basic human. So for example, they can say things like, I can't do anything, nothing good can happen to me, I don't want to live anymore, and so on, in minimal English, and in minimal Italian, non posso fare niente, non può succedermi niente di buono, non voglio vivere più, and so on. So as these examples illustrate, in certain situations, the same human messages can be conveyed through matching words and phrases of different minimal languages. And this fact assumes a special significance at a time like the one that we are living through now, a time of pandemic. Basic human is such a common language. It is a shared language of heart and mind. And many matching versions, with many matching versions, such as minimal English, minimal Russian, minimal Chinese, and so on. And this may sound hard to believe. The 7 essential messages for the time of the coronavirus prove that this is not just a utopian ideal, but a reality. And in these messages, as you may have noticed, there are no complex words and phrases such as social distance, self-isolation, or quarantine. But as a number of respondents, people who have commented on these messages have said, messages written in simple and transparent words of basic human speak directly to people's minds and hearts. Many respondents have linked the emotional impact of such messages with a sense of human unity. And one comment wrote, for example, the message is both moving and very clear, one for all of us, which could be understood and taken in instantaneously by anyone. And another wrote, I found these messages on the coronavirus so very heartening. I think that at the most crucial times, it is this kind of simple language that touches on the essence of what is important and what is not important. And I said, on hearing these messages, one can not only know immediately what they mean, but also one can know that other people know the same. So there are 2 overwhelming conclusions from this, I think. First, that in a global crisis, it becomes evident how important it is for all of us on planet Earth to be able to speak to each other in a common language. And second, that very complex times may call for a very simple language, not only because it is accessible to everyone, but also because it can have a powerful impact on people and can even lift their hearts. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, so do you want to have a break for 5 minutes?
What do you think?
Yes.
I think it might be good. Yeah.
Yes. So can we have a break for 5 minutes? Anna wants to have a break for 5 minutes, and then we come back with question and answer sessions. All right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
I can
Thank you very
take
much.
more water for you. Do you wanna?
Oh, I see. I see.
Okay,
Plenty of water. Thank you. I will just go and stretch my legs too. I'll be back.
Mungkin Pak Gede Prima bisa siapkan question yang di chat itu loh.
Siap. Sudah siap, Prof.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Okay, we can start with the question and answer session. Okay, so good day. Thanks, good day, for putting up here the question. So you can just read, Anna.
I will read the question. So the first question says, is there any explication pattern to make an analysis of unshared concept based on universal semantic molecule, so as to make us easier to confirm or decide the equivalent of the unshared in the target language, if you would like to make interlingual translation? Yes, thank you for the question. It seems to me that generally there are different, there isn't one pattern for explications of complex concepts, but there are certain patterns, or we call them templates, for certain areas. So for example, if you want to explicate a concept for emotion, well, there are many emotion terms, for example, in Javanese, right? People have written a lot about it, which seem to be unique, very different from emotion terms that you get in English. Well, you can use this template for explicating emotion concepts to explain to outsider what these emotion terms mean. And there are also templates for a number of other areas that we have worked on. So it seems to me it is good to read lots of explications which have been published within certain domains to get an idea of how one could approach this particular domain, this particular area. It still takes a lot of hard work and a lot of testing and experimenting against examples, but I think that would be the best approach. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, the second question, Gede.
Thank you, Prof.
Good afternoon, Professor Wierzbicka. I'm really thankful to you for choosing this subject matter for discussion. It is really wonderful. My question is, through a set of words representing the basic core concepts common to all languages that can explain meanings and ideas to other people and for building intercultural communication, how NSM contributes to prevent the pandemic of the global COVID? Well, I don't know if NSM can contribute to prevent the pandemic, but it seems to me NSM can help to lift people's hearts and minds, people's spirits, you know. There is a pandemic of coronavirus, but there is also a pandemic of depression. And for example, we know from statistics that in Australia, there are many young people, many more young people are committing suicide now during the pandemic than before. And I don't know about statistics from other countries, but people, there are mental problems that people have. The isolation is terribly difficult on many people. So I just hope that these messages formulated in very transparent and simple terms, if they are distributed widely, they can help people to find ways of thinking and ways of living through the day, which can help them spiritually, mentally, but also can motivate them to connect with other people, to help other people, to write, to ring, and so on, which of course would be a way of counteracting the current disastrous situation. I think that's it.
Yes. The next question, Gede.
NSM is a mini language because it contains universal features that are represented in the semantic primes. How to determine the universal semantic molecule of English NSM as an example? When I attended the Institute in 1994, I did not learn yet the semantic molecules and how to develop them. Well, first of all, I wouldn't like to use the word features because that's a different approach to semantics. For us, these are not features, but maybe you are not particularly attached to the word features. There are universal concepts which are linked with identifiable words or phrases in all languages. How to determine the universal semantic molecules of English? Well, you don't have to, I mean, this is a new part, new area of NSM theory. which is developing, well, it started some 20 or 25 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, but really it's a more recent thing. So you need to just read on the more recent literature about molecules. And I think we more or less know what the universal semantic molecules are now. So what you are really asking for is the references. And well, references I can send you. But the problem is not how to identify, sorry, let me just finish. The problem is not how to identify universal for most practitioners. For most practitioners, the problem is not how to identify universal semantic molecules of, not of English, but universal semantic molecules, I mean, expressed in English, NSM, but how to work with them, how to use them in effective and simple and transparent explications. And this can be best learned, again, by working with the literature, where you can find examples of this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Eda.
Okay.
Well,
Hello.
this is already.
Yeah,
Well,
sounds good.
Professor Anna Wierzbicka. Yes. I thank for this great opportunity to meet you virtually. I'm impressed, Professor, with the topic, especially minimal English or minimal language. My first thing is, I wonder whether minimal English or minimal language look like explication in NSM. If yes, I came across with the data on your handout message 4. Let me read your message 4. Like, I can read books. I listen to music. Write something every day about, if I pray, I can pray more. Since the words books, music, pray are not belonging to semantic primes. Okay, what do you think about this? And then my second concern is...
Okay, can I try to answer the first question before I forget?
Yes. The
Thank
first
you.
question is, the word music, books, pray in your message 4, because I read your handout, are not belonging to semantic primes.
Yes, you are absolutely right.
Yeah.
You are absolutely right. Well, these are certainly not semantic primes, but what is worse, so to speak, they are not universal semantic molecules, right? Because as I discussed, books and music and read and pray, these are not universal semantic molecules. Yes, so this is a kind of compromise. We can get rid of it. We could just prune them. I thought that mentioning these examples would be useful for recipients in many cultures, but of course they are not truly universal. So you can just delete those lines. But fortunately, we can all look at the stars, you know, and the word for stars is in every language, and look at stars, that's in every language, right? And you can, and what do I say there about you can look at the sun or something? I can't remember. What is the, no, music? No, but what do I say about the sun? I can look at the stars at night. I can look at the sky when the sun is rising, things like that. And things good for the soul. So if you want to be strict, yes, you should cross out 2 lines between the soul and the stars. And even the soul is not exactly the same in every language, but according to, we haven't done, well, we have investigated to some extent, but not fully. It seems that every language has some word comparable to soul. So there's a word for the body and there's the word for something else. Whether it is soul or l'âme in French or dusha in Russian, they may not match exactly, but you could keep this, especially in inverted commas. But I agree with you, you should for many languages, you should cross out the lines about prayer and the good and the book and music. Yes.
May I continue?
And the
My
second question?
Yes. If I compare with the recent publication, I happen to read the book entitled Studies in Ethnopragmatics, Cultural Semantics, and Intercultural Communication, edited by Kerry Mullen and friends, published in 2020 now, yeah. I happen to read the chapter 2. The title is Dealing with Brief Introduction to Nsm Approach. It consists of semantic prime and their syntax, semantic molecule, as you said, I think, thank you for semantic molecule, and semantic templates. I would like to ask your comment about this is, I think, new issue in NSM, because I concern in applying NSM in Balinese at the moment. Thank you very much, Prof.
I'm sorry, I haven't quite understood what the problem is. You mentioned primes, you mentioned molecules, and you mentioned templates, but what is the problem?
He just thanks about the new development. He thanks
for the new development. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, it's very exciting, especially this theory of semantic molecules. It's you know, really developing big way now. So we're very excited about it in many different languages. I can tell you that my colleague Cliff Goddard and my two colleagues, Cliff Goddard and Zheng Dao, just got a big grant for a sort of international study of molecules in a number of languages, strategic languages. So this, you can expect big things. So as they say, watch this space.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Professor Godal also say that semantic primes and their syntax and semantic templates, as you said. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Next question, Gede.
Okay, how could NSM overcome the problems of communication across the cultures in the world, especially those related to religious beliefs? Well, thank you for the question. It seems to me that the most important thing is to understand each other. I think that at the moment, people across different cultures, different religions don't understand each other. In fact, even within a particular religion, if you can see that I'm particularly interested in Christianity as a Christian, but because I've written this book, many Christians don't really know very clearly what they believe. They are confused. There's a lot of confusion even among the people who confess the same religion. So to begin with, I think it's very important that people within a religion can say very clearly in cross-translatable words what they believe. And then they can show it to people from other religions and say, this is what we believe, and what do you believe? And please tell me in simple and cross-translatable words what you believe. So that's the start, it seems to me. It's not a question of persuading one another that that you should believe in this way and I believe in this way, so you should. But to understanding each other is very, very important. And it seems to me, as it is, well, people who confess different religions, belong to different religions, often really don't understand at all what those from other religion believe. And if you want to read something about it, you find explanations written in such complex language that you really cannot find out clearly what these people believe. So that's the start, I think. Okay, thank you. I do have this similar question as Arafik Ismail, adding how NSM is applied to reveal the particular cultural norm and religious belief. Yes, well, of course it's not easy, but I have two discussion groups in which we try to formulate what we believe at the moment, the people in my groups are Christians. Most of them are Catholics, but not all of them. No. There are a few people, a couple of people come who are not Christians. And we try to formulate very clearly what we believe. Christians have this text, canonical text, called the Nicene Creed. So at least this is the text which people recite on Sunday. That's what we believe. But language is complex and people don't always know what it means. So in order to explain clearly what it means, you have to think about it. And in a sense, having an Nsm as a set of standard is helpful, because if you know that you cannot use a very complex word, then you are forced to be precise. Do you mean this or do you mean that? And the use of these very, very simple words forces you to be precise. So at the end of our discussions, we usually feel that we understand better. We may not agree even in our group, but we understand better what we want to say. And the same applies, I think, to other religions. Knowing, that's a huge discipline. It is very, very difficult to explain religious beliefs, your own religious beliefs, using only 65 semantic primes, or even using the extra, a few dozen of universal models. It's very difficult. It's a discipline. It forces you to think clearly. And this helps. I think it's a good start. I hope you agree. Thank you. Yeah, Professor Wierzbicka, I applied the Nsm theory to writing my thesis and my dissertation. Until now, I still find it difficult to analyze the meaning of nouns, abstract, by applying the Nsm theory. Is there any suggestion to solve this problem? Thank you. Well, you mentioned specifically abstract nouns, but there will be no abstract nouns in your semantic explications, right? There are no abstract nouns in Nsm. So the first question would be for you, how to try to paraphrase a sentence with your abstract noun into a sentence without an abstract noun. That's what you have to start with. So for example, we don't talk about death, life and death. And you can see that in my essential messages, words like life and death are not used. You know that you have to use the words to die and to live. These are the only two which we can use, no abstract nouns. So this, in a sense, again, that's a discipline which is difficult, but which leads to much more precise results. We have discussed, Cliff Goddard and I have given examples of how to deal with abstract nouns in our book, Words and Meanings, which was published in 2014. And in a sense, we proposed a template for analyzing the meaning of abstract nouns. I don't know whether you're familiar with that. So for example, we analyzed words like disease and illness and trauma, and a number of others, abstract nouns. So I think you can perhaps take this as a kind of model, but the question is how to, the task is to get rid of the noun, abstract noun, and reduce everything to those simple and clear verbs. Thank you. Can Nsm be used to explain the case of ambiguity in various local languages, which is then useful for documentation? Well, yes, we think that Nsm is can have a very important role in language documentation, because people document words, but what really needs to be documented is not just words, but the meanings. And the words are often polysemous, even within one language and one dialect. And you can have similar sounding words with somewhat different meanings in different languages. So it is vital to identify the meaning through simple and cross-translatable words. And ambiguity, polysemy, well, how else could you do it? You actually can't do it, in my view, in any other way than by relying on a sort of rock. You have to have some concepts which are stable and secure. So you have if you take the list of 65, you have 65 secure, reliable tools. And in terms of this, you can experiment with different formulations. Well, you will not get the meaning right on first go. You have to go through, at least 10 different versions before you get something which seems to correspond to facts and be coherent in terms of text. But you have a tool, you have a set of tools which are really secure and reliable, I think. Thank you.
So this is the last one, I think, from participants.
How do we know that our explication is correct and accepted? Well, good question. I think it's a long process. So for example, in this paper on Jukurpa, on the Australian concept Jukurpa, which I mentioned, Cliff Goddard and I discussed, I think, about 40 different versions, how we tried to come up with an explication. And the first explication seemed to us pretty good, but then we worked on it more and consulted other people, and we discovered that it was not very good. And we explained why. So we had version 2, and then we worked with version 2, tested it against. You have to check how a word is used. Would this fit all different situations where the word is used? And usually you find that it will not, so we move to version 3. And so it's a very long process. So we got the version of Jukurpa now, 5 years ago, and since then, I think we are aware of one correction, which we would like to say, but it's pretty good. But it had to go through 40 versions before. Generally, it's a long process, and it really requires other people. You can't really do it alone. That's our, experience. If you do it on your own, you often will not notice some errors. But if you discuss with other people, somebody will point out, well, look, this doesn't fit this context, for example. And so it's a long process. Don't expect to have a result quickly. It's a process of trial and error. And it continues. You can never be sure that your latest version is absolutely perfect, but it's very likely that it's much better than the previous version. That's all we can say. Involve other people, try again, and do more experimenting with other people.
Okay. Do you have more questions today? No? That's the last one?
No, I think that's the last one.
Yeah, we still have a couple of more minutes.
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk about any aspect of what I said in the first hour, that if you would like me to expand on something, I'll be glad to do it. You don't have to have a formal question, but you can say that you would like to hear more about such and such.
What do you think, Pat?
Okay, I think there's more questions. So I think we almost, 4:30 now.
Yeah.
I think we just wrap up, and we have had a very wonderful lecture by Professor Wierzbicka, and also quite good question and answer sessions, insightful comment questions, and good discussion by Anna. So again, on behalf of Udayana University, we thank Anna for a wonderful presentation today. We learned a lot from you, and I think hopefully this is not the first time. Okay, so
thank you very much, Ryan, and thank you very much, Uday, and thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for your engagement. It is really wonderful to be able to think together, and maybe you learn from me, but I learn from you, because I can see which points are unclear and require, better explanations and further thinking. So thank you all very much. Thank you.
Okay, with that now, we finish off and close this session.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Bye.
All the best. Keep safe.
See you next time.
Yeah, thank you.